Hello and welcome to StarK's monthly webinar held each month, the last Wednesday of the month. Usually it's at noon Eastern Time. Today, because of some scheduling conflicts, we made it at 4 o'clock, but we did get some issues from Eretz Yisrael that it's too late over there. So we're trying to please everybody. We do have a recording of this, and hopefully we'll make it available to you after the show. We did give out a call-in number on the email that you got, but I want to give you a better call-in number. It's 267-279-9000. 267-279-9000. With the pin is 112-85-3167. So that's actually a better number. I'm going to put it over here in the chat, which is on the right side of your screen. And we want to welcome today Rabbi Avrohom Mushell. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And Rabbi Sholom Tendler.
Thank you, Rabbi Goldberg.
How are you? And I'm Tzvi Goldberg, and glad I'm your host. I'm glad that you could join with us. As you can see, we are in different locations. I'm in my office here at the StarK. There's only a couple of us here. Rabbi Mushell is also here. And Rabbi Tendler is at a local restaurant. Accents is going to give us a tour later and show us how we do mashgiach work during these difficult times with social distancing and so on. If you have any questions, feel free to put it on your screen at the bottom right. There's a chat box there, and we'll try to get to your questions as well. So the topics we have for today. What are the topics? 3 topics. Okay. Eve says no audio on the moderator. Okay. If anybody else has that, okay. Yehuda hears us, and Zev. Okay. So I assume that. Okay. Great. Thanks very much. Okay. Everybody's able to hear us. I assume that that's a technical issue on your side, Eve. So please look at your computer, see what the issue is. Must be some setting there. Our tech support is not here because of the issues, and so I am the moderator, tech support, whatever else you want. Okay, so the topics for today's show are: number 1, we're talking about things that do not require a certification. A lot of people shopping from home, not in their regular stores, trying to stay away from the stores, and so they may buy not their regular foods would come without a hechsher. So what is it that you can buy reasonably kosher without a hechsher? What are those items? We'll go through some of those. Then we want to talk about what StarK is doing. How are we visiting our plants? What's the protocol? How are we getting into the facilities? That's number 2. And number 3, as I mentioned, Rabbi Tendler would give us a tour of a actual restaurant and show us what he's doing to do that. Okay, so let's take a look. We have here a list. I hope everybody can see that on your screens. This is a list that we made up. We didn't publish it, so you're getting the first look at it here, of items that are acceptable without certification. We're a little bit hesitant to put this out because these things change, and we want to discuss it. We can talk about it, see what the issues could be. So as noted here, all the acceptable items. This is not the whole list. This is 4 or 5 pages here. We have that's just the first page. So there's a number of pages here. They're only acceptable if they're pure without additives. Only if they come from outside of Eretz Yisrael, of Israel, because otherwise you need to tithe them. Okay, I'm being asked to make it larger, so let's do that. Okay, we try to please. Hopefully, that's a little bit better. It's not for use for Pesach, and some items here may require checking for insects. So we have our website, check for insects. Rabbi Tendler is our bug expert, and he put together that site for us. And very importantly, this list does not reflect Starkey acceptance of product for us certified companies. In some cases, we require a hechsher. So what we're telling you is this is reasonable to, in a home situation to use without a hechsher, but it doesn't mean necessarily Starkey uses these items in their facilities. Okay, so let's go through.
Right, Goldberg, and I believe this is on our website, this list, correct?
No, it's not. I was saying it's not yet on our website because...
will it be?
It's supposed to be.
I guess we'll discuss it. We'll discuss it during the webinar. We'll figure out if we should publish it or not.
There's a lot of discussion in the office about this item. Maybe it shouldn't be on that item, But it's a reasonable list, But we haven't published it yet. Okay, let's take the first item, Agave Nectar. Rabbi Mushell, you have any thoughts about that?
Generally speaking, I don't think we've come across real issues with Agave Nectar. Like any liquid product, it's going to be repacked. Potentially, it might be heated in a place where they're repacking it to get viscosity to flow easier. But as a rule, it's generally not an issue.
Okay, so it should be okay. All right, apple juice. It says pure, better if possible with certification. So apple juice basically is acceptable. If you can get it with a reliable certification, it'd be better. And that's because, Mushell, why?
One issue you'd be looking at in an apple juice is the bottling or the canning facility. They may also be processing grape juice, and therefore you would want the hechsher to be looking in to see that the clean out between products would not compromise the kashrus. The other thing is that apple juice is clarified as a rule, unless you're buying the murky apple juice. But generally speaking, apple juice is clarified. And if it's clarified, there are different procedures to do that. But one of the things is an additive would be an enzyme that a pectinase that gathers the solids and makes them fall to the bottom, so it's easier for them to make it clear. And the other thing is that there are different types of filtration systems, and some filtration systems do have storage in glycerin or use gelatin. So it's always better to have a hechsher for something like that. But as a rule, the volume of what's going through would negate, but the ever there being a problem.
Therefore, the problem would be, any issues there would be bottled. That's what you're saying, right? So therefore, It's kosher without a certification. But that's why we say here it's better with a certification. Right.
Now that's also a reason why we get a lot of questions. People ask about apple cider, hard cider, and things like that, which for the same reasons that we say requires a hechsher, because the apple juice sources for those places is sometimes from areas in the world where they're known to use gelatin as a clarifying agent. So if you find some some hard apple cider from some companies might have a hechsher, some don't assume it's all the same.
Okay. Almond paste, if the ingredients are only almond, sugar, and water, so it's very simple. Aluminum foil pans, we're not really worried about that they smear them with any oils. We haven't found that to be an issue.
As a rule, when they do the stamping, they do coat it. There is an oil that's used, but as a rule, it's usually a petrochemical oil.
Like a mineral oil?
A mineral oil. But then again, it potentially could be another type of oil. And it is hot at the process. It's also heated at different stages. So as a rule, it's going to be for sure kosher b'diavad, but l'chatchila, it's better with the hechsher.
Well, aluminum foil pans?
Aluminum foil pans, they're okay, right?
But you're saying it's better with a hechsher?
I would say put it the same as an apple juice.
Really? Okay. So we need to redo it. That's why we can't put out this list, right, Michelle? Because we need to redo it every time we go through, because it's not so simple. Okay, ammonia. Ammonia is only, I guess, because people ask about it, but obviously it doesn't need a certification.
I think that one, everyone in the office would agree on that.
Yeah, I think we could agree on. Yes, I agree.
As they say, if you make a l'chaim on it, it will be your last.
Okay, all right. Apple pectin powder would be okay. Okay, now applesauce. Applesauce, plain only, even with high fructose corn syrup and vitamins, even though high fructose corn syrup could be an issue by itself, but in what happened to the list here? Okay. In the applesauce, it would be nullified. It's not really a big problem, and it would be okay. So applesauce is the kind of thing that it doesn't require hechsher. If you would buy it with a hechsher, you would be getting something. They would have a mashgiach going in and checking it out. But it is acceptable without any hechsher also. Baking powder. So baking powder, I think, if you would agree with me, the rabbis here, that baking powder is an item where you really don't get anything if you buy it with a hechsher. You're not really the concerns are so small that it really doesn't. Baking powder, baking soda. I don't know. I think the concerns are very small.
Soda is a pure mineral. Baking powder has additives.
Okay.
And if some people are mocked on tartaric acid, many baking powders have tartaric acid in them.
I see.
So that's something that some people may have concerns. Okay, tartaric acid, real natural tartaric acid, is a byproduct of winemaking, which some people are mocked on, and some people say is not an issue because it's dried.
Okay. So then let's say the baking soda would be something that you're not really getting any benefit of buying with hechsher. Would you agree with that?
Correct.
Okay. Barbecue bricks, no problem. Raw barley, pearled barley, not a problem. But again, you may have to check it for bugs. You have to see our website for updated info. Dried beans, bee pollen pure, bleach, again, an item only because people ask us about it. So for cleaning, for cleaning the sink. Unprocessed bran, raw buckwheat, raw bulgur, calcium carbonate or lactate, which is probably not something you're going to buy plain, I don't think, anyway. Calcium gluconate, same for that. Candles, 100% pure paraffin. What would people be worried about by candles? That it's made of some animal fat?
In the olden days, that was common.
Mm-hmm. So they don't want it to get on their dishes or something like that? Is that what would be the issue?
Of the kalev candle in the olden days would make your kalev become treif. It's a common silent.
Right. Okay. But there is no problem really. Okay. Capers and water, salt, citric, or lactic acid only. So you have to read the ingredients. Carrot powder, carrots raw or frozen. Now, carrots sometimes can come from Eretz Yisrael, right?
Very common.
Right.
Especially this time of year, especially. But
Right.
that's the general, as we say, the general agricultural clause. Any agricultural product, you have to make sure it's not a product of Israel. Right now, specifically, I would pay attention to peppers, citrus, and carrots. Citrus fruits, all types, and carrots. A lot of them from Israel now, and herbs, parsley specifically. It's a lot of it comes from Eretz Yisrael because actually the quality is superb. That's why a lot of the companies bring it in.
They're still bringing it in now, or even more now?
Oh yeah, even more. Meaning, one of our companies signed a contract for the next 7 years, every year, to get carrots almost exclusively in season from Israel because they said you can't compare the quality, which was nice to hear. It's a little bit more complicated for us that way because we have to be mafresh trumas and maishas, and we have Shemitah coming up in a few years. But we'll deal with that when we get there.
Okay.
But
barbecue bricks, cheesecloth. These are not food items, but people ask about it. You never know. Cocoa beans, cocoa butter, cocoa nibs, cocoa powder, which is just plain cocoa, not cocoa mix like you might buy, with sugar and all the additives. That does need a certification. Coconut powder, coconut water, coffee beans unflavored. But if they're flavored, or coffee ground unflavored, if they're flavored, then the flavors require certification. Corn grits, corn husks, cornmeal pre-cooked with vitamins. Okay, same thing. Corn powder. Let's keep going. Counter surface cleaners. Okay, because they're just going on your counter, and we haven't found them to be a kosher issue. Couscous raw, 100% wheat. Crock-pot liners, cupcake holders, date syrup, dental floss, even flavored, because you're not eating it. You're just not meant to be eaten. Denture adhesive, denture cleaner, detergent, citric acid cleaner for pump pots. So these all do not require certification. Now, Herman is asking, if you're ordering carrots from the store, you can't know where the carrots are coming from.
Right. You don't have to assume that if you don't know, you don't have to assume they're coming from Eretz Yisrael. So that's not really an issue. It's only the problem is that really the FDA guidelines require stores to list the source of all their produce. So you go to the store, you're going to see a big sign, say produce of Israel. That's when you'll know. And on oranges, for example, there's a sticker on every single orange that says the country of origin on it. But if you're getting plain carrots or any fruit or vegetable for that matter, and you don't know where it's from, you don't have to assume that it's from Israel.
Yes, because Rove is not, right? We would still say the majority is not from Israel. So if you can't know, then you don't have to assume it's from Israel. Definitely. Okay. Dishwashing detergent, excluding those with soap, because the ones that say soap on them, Rabbi Heinemann doesn't like them because that soap means that they are made with animal fats, and even though it doesn't taste good, it won't. If you used it, it wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't forbid your utensils. It wouldn't make them treif. But it's not an ideal thing to use, let's say, pig fat with your dishes. So that's something that you want to avoid. So if it says detergent, we can assume it doesn't have this soap in it. Dishwashing gloves, dried fruits without added ingredients other than sugar. That except for dried bananas, because the bananas have some additives to them that would require certification. Farina, flour, for example, wheat, almond, nut, chickpea, quinoa, soy, rice, spelt. These are plain flours would be okay. Frozen fruit that's not prone to infestation, for example, peaches, mangoes, rhubarb, cherries, and assuming it doesn't list other ingredients. That's something that you can, actually you can save money on if you want, right? If you buy store brand mangoes, for instance, without any other additives, that would be cheaper. And there's really not a big kashrus problem with that. It would be fine. Grain, herbs, dried herbs like spices, honey, pure, unflavored, lip gloss, even flavored because you're not eating it. It's not a food. Okay, so Jana is asking, do you need to sift flour to check for bugs? Rabbi Tendler?
Not unless you have a specific reason why you would be concerned about it. Regular flour that you buy from the store in the United States anyway doesn't need to be sifted.
Okay. What about in Israel?
Eretz Yisrael, you should consult the local rabbanim and guidance there.
Right. Okay. All right. Milk.
All our vegetable policies are focused exclusively on North America.
Right. Milk is acceptable if you do not keep Chol Yisrael. Any milk is okay. Molasses, unflavored, nuts, almonds, walnuts, cashews, salted or unsalted, raw, dry roasted without oils. So
I just addressed that question about Canada. Yeah. So far, Canada is still included in North America.
Okay. All right. So, Rabbi Mushell, what about the dry roasted nuts? Is there any issue with that, or they're fine?
Generally speaking, if there's no oils added, it's assumed to be okay.
Okay. All right. Oatmeal.
Go back to one thing you were talking before. You mentioned before about coconut powder. That's a term that's not clear. I think that everybody would agree that a desiccated coconut or a coconut flour would be okay without a hechsher. But there are such things as spray dried coconut milk and things like that definitely needs a hechsher.
Okay, so we need to refine the list more. That's what you're saying, Rabbi Mushell.
Correct.
Okay. So I think that answers the question we had. Will this be online? And the answer is not yet. Okay.
But Be'ez Hashem, by the time Corona passes, we'll have it online.
Right. Okay. Onions frozen or dried. And we are not concerned about the problem of leaving these onions that you buy commercial from a store overnight, because there is a responsive from Rabbi Moshe Feinstein that allowed that, and we rely on that. Orange juice, pure, oven cleaner.
Getting back to the onions, on an onion powder, which some people may assume to be the same as dried onions.
Okay.
an onion powder, sometimes they'll add a free-flowing agent, which could be silica, which is not an issue, but oftentimes they'll add something like triacetin or a fatty acid, which could be an issue. We found that in many places.
Is that specifically with onion powder?
More common with onion powder, sometimes with garlic powder. The most common situation is onion powder.
Would it be nullified in the worst case?
In the worst case, it would be nullified. But
okay, good. Oven cleaner, paper plates, cups, napkins. Believe it or not, some people ask us about that, and they're okay. Pasta, raw flour, just flour and water. Peppercorns, plastic wrap of bags. Popcorn kernels, rice, raw or parboiled, but not instant rice, because instant rice needs a hechsher because it is already mostly cooked. So it needs a certification for the Bishul Yisrael issues, not because of the ingredients, but because it's mostly cooked already. Quinoa raw, again, this is an item that needs to be checked for insects. We had previous webinars about that, and it's all that information is on our website. Salt, seltzer, unflavored, silver polish, and we come to the last few items. Spices, pure but not blends, because blends sometimes have added ingredients for flow agents. Split peas raw, sugar, cane, beet, brown confectioners, sugar substitutes, tea or tea bags which are unflavored, and water which is unflavored even with fluoride or added minerals. So this is a list of things that you can buy more or less safely without a hechsher.
Year round, not Pesach. Make sure to make that clear.
You're right, rest of the year. Yaakov has a question about quinoa, but maybe we'll take that at the end if we can get to that. Vanilla extract. Does vanilla extract require a hechsher? Herman is asking. Rabbi Mushell?
Vanilla extract is really, they take the bean and they extract it using an alcohol. Most cases, depending on which part of the world it's coming from, it's not an issue. But if it's available with a hechsher, you're much safer getting with a hechsher that you know that the alcohol is not a wine-based alcohol, but rather like a sugar-based alcohol.
So our official position is yes, it does require a hechsher. What about soy milk? Soy milk also.
Soy milk has all kinds of additives.
Right, we definitely need the hechsher, right.
It's also generally made at companies that also do dairy products. So that's also something to bear in mind.
Well, that's why most, not sure if say most, a lot of soy milks and almond milks actually have a dairy designation by the Hashgacha, even though they claim all over it that it's dairy-free and allergen-free, which is a question we get very often.
Moshe is asking, what about honey, even from China, that it's not really pure? But yeah, right. So we know that, but I think that the item that they would add would be corn syrup, which wouldn't be a big problem. So it wouldn't be acceptable for Pesach. For Pesach, it's an issue, but for the rest of the year, we accept it for as kosher as long as it says on it there's no additives. Okay, so Herman is asking about the vanilla extract. If you order online from a store and you receive vanilla without an extract, do you mean without a hechsher? Not sure what he means.
Yeah, I guess I assume without a hechsher. That's
I think he means
very
without
common
a hechsher,
question.
right? Without a hechsher, should you use it, Rabbi Mushell?
Product of the USA or product of South Asia would be okay.
Okay, there you go. All right. I mean, that's what's happening. People
Where is South Asia, Rabbi Mushell? To all those unlearned, untraveled human beings out there.
India, Sri Lanka, south of China, Vietnam, Thailand.
Right. Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that.
We did get some more questions via email, so let me go through those. What about ice? Ice that you buy in a store, does that require, in a bagged ice, does that require a hechsher? And the answer is it does not. And then the further question is, what about in New York City, where the water is the problem of the copepods? We've had discussions about that. The bugs that are in the New York City water, which we don't recommend to eat those bugs. So the ice in New York City is not 100% okay. Sometimes it's filtered, sometimes it's possibly not filtered. But I checked with one of our New York City rabbis, and he said a lot of the times you read the bag of the ice, and the ice is imported from outside. New York City. It's often not made in New York City. You can see it on the bag. You can see the place of production, and so that would be okay outside of New York as well. See what else we got here. Okay, well, then the other questions have to do with the second part of our discussion, which is what is the Star K and other Hashem doing to visit facilities, across the world, when we know that everybody's very nervous about the virus. Right, Rabbi Tendler, can you address that a little bit?
So everybody's very concerned about the virus. So there's really a few issues, and really every department in the Star K is affected by this problem. We have local restaurants, we have factories in the United States. A lot of them, let's start with the essential factories, which are producing fresh food items, whether it's restaurants, whether it's fresh produce facilities. So they're operating as usual or as much as possible. But because they're operating as usual and they need to operate with as many staff members as possible, they have to put in extra safety protocols to make sure that whatever they're producing for their work, their work staff, the environment's going to be safe. Everyone read the news and heard about all the different facilities, meatpacking plants and places like that, where you have a lot of workers in close quarters where it's not so necessarily feasible to social distance. And, there's been outbreaks in these kinds of places. So a lot of companies are super sensitive right now to this kind of a thing. So the problem that comes up would be allowing mashgichim in, and on our end, how are we able to certify the plants in these kinds of situations where we feel we can only certify it if the mashgiach is able to check the plant effectively, as usual, under these circumstances. That's issue number one. Issue number two is going to be, more Rabbi Mishell's department. We have industrial facilities who are producing, I would say, let's say non-essential goods, but more industrial items, citric acids and things like that, which are more like industrial food products. They're not like essential fresh products, which people are buying off supermarket shelves. And these factories a lot of times are in areas, particularly in the Far East, where Corona is a big problem. And travel is difficult, if not next to impossible. And there we have to figure out, also what we can do to certify these plants. So let's start with the United States. The United States pretty much, most companies are still operating. Most companies did not necessarily slow down. Small businesses were certainly affected more than the large corporations, at least in the food sector. And what we did, the Star K did, was we developed, together with our partners at NSF, we developed a very strict COVID-19 protocol, which all mashgichim, field mashgichim, restaurant mashgichim are required to follow, which includes obviously all the CDC hand washing recommendations, wearing of a mask, gloves, etc., temperature checking, and making sure they're not feeling unwell in any way, shape, or form. And basically, once those protocols are implemented, carrying on the visits more or less as usual. What we did was we sent communication to all our companies and restaurants also, and told them these are our protocols. And we plan based on these protocols to continue our visits as usual because, for our purposes, as far as kosher certification, we feel that the regular visits are considered essential. And I'll mention all the government agencies from federal to state and local all agreed with that assertion that kosher supervision is considered essential service. The fact that the Star K is working remotely is not because our office has to be closed. It's because, like most Jewish environments, everyone loves to not social distance when we're in a normal situation. So we're working remotely because we have that issue. There's too many people would be in the office otherwise. But we are considered essential service, and we're carrying on visits as usual in most situations. Obviously, there are going to be exceptions. And there are going to be places where we absolutely can't get to. And there, Mushell could correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to make a case-by-case determination based on the risk level in the facility, whether it's something we can continue giving the hechsher on, temporarily until we're able to visit, or certain cases we have to either suspend the hechsher temporarily.
We did certainly suspend some hechsher. Right. We couldn't do.
Right, hashgacha tamidus runs are more or less out of the question in foreign countries. In the United States, we have a lot that are going on. Obviously, vegetables, romaine lettuce has never missed a beat. actually. And another advantage of in the United States is that a lot of the industrial facilities are not in the middle of cities. They're in more out in the suburbs or in urban settings, and therefore corona is less of an issue in these places. So there's less stress.
We have a question here. How are products and takeouts being certified as Bishul Yisrael and Chalav Yisrael during the pandemic?
The same way they're certified all the rest of the time.
Right.
The mashgichim are working as usual. Chalav Yisrael, we've been getting that, in honor of Shavuos. It must be last week or so. We've been getting. I can't even tell you how many questions about the Chalav Yisrael. How are we? Do we have milk this week? I said we didn't miss a single week of milking in the last 3 months either. Cows have to be milked 3 times a day. Cows don't care about coronavirus. They want to give their milk, and we're happy to take their milk. So we've had mashgichim. We didn't miss a single shift on Chalav Yisrael farms, or in restaurants for that matter either. The ones that are actually open, are open for takeout. Obviously, based on whatever local guidelines they have to follow. But mashgichim are working as usual. And I'll add a shout out to all of them, really being Meiser Nefesh. With all their PPE, equipment and things like that they want to wear, that we insist they wear to make sure they stay safe, but really being Meiser Nefesh to make sure there's really no break in the food supply chain.
So our fish plants being visited, the answer is
no.
If we're what? No?
Well, those fish plants that we do like major productions overseas and the like, we're not doing any such productions right now. We've canceled some productions.
So will it be a shortage of
local? Maybe we do have some mashgichim there at the time of production.
No, let's not talk about shortages. It was cream cheese. It was toilet paper. It was hand sanitizer. Everybody, as Rabbi Heinemann has been saying, he can promise us that nobody will starve.
Right.
Even if you don't have enough cream cheese for Shavuos, there's nobody will starve. He promises that. I was
talking to Dr. Pollack before. He said that he thinks that he read reports that there's many people gaining weight during the virus. So apparently there's not a shortage of food.
There's no shortage of potato chips, that's for sure.
Maybe there's a shortage of a particular brand of item that you want, but that's a possibility. So we would recommend that you be more careful in checking the labels for the hechsher, because it's possible that items that require hechsher, then that you should check them, because it's possible that over time, what you're eating now probably was produced, a month ago. But as time goes on, it's possible that we would not be certifying that anymore. Mushell, didn't we found some local mashgichim, right, in certain countries to go.
In China, we have some local mashgichim, and in India we have some local mashgichim. Right. And they have sometimes some places they cannot get to right away, but we've been able to get special government passes. Had a mashgiach in the Philippines just last week who got a special pass to be able to go to different locations in order to do inspections. So whenever possible, we are continuing with pushing regular inspections.
We've really been pushing back on the companies who say, who don't, sometimes the companies will say, well, we'd rather you not come. So, they don't tell that to the health inspector. So, the health inspector is allowed to come. So we really need to come in a nice way. We talk to them and we explain to them what Rabbi Tendler was saying about our protocols, and they've, really been, accommodating us.
I think the main thing that helped us a lot was we were proactive in the sense that we reached out to them first and told them that we are continuing regular visits and here are our protocols. And I'd say 99% of the time they were very receptive to it.
Yeah.
And appreciated it that we're taking those levels of
right.
safety measures. Just one question on the side, because I've been getting this all week also, is about as far as relying on cameras for Chalav Yisrael. It's certainly a machlokes and a lot of tumult about that. Starcade does not rely on that. We never have, and we don't rely on cameras. And Baruch Hashem, we've never.
Why is that a question right now? Because the mashgichim aren't there?
Yeah, some places in Eretz Yisrael, particularly even according to some hashkachas that in the past didn't rely on Chalav Yisrael, in Eretz Yisrael where they had extremely strict lockdown procedures, then in certain cases they ended up relying on Chalav Yisrael. I don't want to get into the particulars of what Kashrus agencies in Eretz Yisrael are doing. I wish you hatzlacha. You can find that out for yourself from your Kashrus agencies there. But suffice to say that we never relied on that even before this whole thing.
David's asking a good question. Are there any specific consumer products that we know of which a Star K has removed their hechsher already, and you would not find a Star K on it any longer? We'd have to go and make a list and see if there's. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head.
I think a lot of it was like we didn't do a couple of fish productions, so fish productions always would either have a hechsher or not. So I don't know that we've had a number of companies that we had to cancel special productions on, but nothing that would be easily recognizable to the consumer. That's we looked into this just because we get this question a lot.
Not yet, but it could be that
it's very possible, but definitely check.
We were hit a little bit before Pesach on a couple of products that would have had special runs that we had to cancel overseas.
Okay, so now let's move on to the next part. Rabbi Tendler, you are going to take us on a tour of what? Where?
So I am sitting right now in Serengeti's Grill, which is closed, which is a restaurant in Baltimore. They are operating only the other side of the restaurant, which is Accent's Grill. They also have a dairy side in a different part of the shopping center. So they're operating for takeout, curbside delivery only. And so we are doing regular inspections. The mashgiach is here, regular hours. And myself, Rabbi Stern, my assistant, we do our regular inspections. So it's a little bit extra precautions that we have to take going in and out of places. And I guess Rabbi Goldberg wanted to show everybody how we go into restaurants nowadays. So I have to gear up.
Wait a second. You're going into a closed restaurant? You're going to go into an open restaurant?
So the restaurant, I'm sitting here in the, let's see if you could see this. I'm sitting here in the dining room, which has been turned into a storage room because they're not allowed to operate it by law. But the kitchens are operating in all the restaurants. And almost all the restaurants in town here in Baltimore are operating, maybe some with less hours or so, but all of them are operating. And it really was like that the entire time, up to right before Pesach. Over Pesach, we had a bunch of places that were open this year for Pesach, for takeout, obviously, the supermarkets, etc. And the rest, since then, the restaurants also. Everyone's, it's a struggle. Restaurants are certainly struggling, terribly. Caterers are certainly struggling terribly. We encourage people, if they're able to. People are also struggling terribly, to try to help support the restaurants because they're doing their best to stay open to serve people. But more from our perspective, it's business as usual. We have to go in and make sure everything is kosher, like we've always been doing. Vegetables need to be checked. Meats coming in and everything. So, my days, I have not had such short work days, even since this whole coronavirus thing started. I'll say that.
I think people think we're working less because there's not too much to do, but it really...
No, I think we're working more because besides, even if there might be less companies calling now because some of them are operating less hours, but every question now takes much more time to answer because you have to actually think about the answers now, right? Like every question is more complicated now because of this whole thing. Oh yeah, it used to be, you need a mashgiach? Yeah, we'll send a mashgiach. Now, 1 second. Can I send a mashgiach? Do I have enough mashgiachim to send? Everything becomes more complicated.
You can make sure that the mashgiach can go.
Right.
And people calling the Star K, they're being serviced consumers if they want to. I see some of the questions here which we're not necessarily being able to answer all the questions here, but if you call us at 410-484-4110 or info@star-k.org. There's somebody there who's going to answer your call or answer your email. And, people are spread out, but we're functioning at a very, very high level, Baruch Hashem. So, Rabbi Tendler, you want to show us the restaurant?
Yeah, sure. Give me a minute to get geared up over here. So
okay, we'll give you...
Now I do have, the N95 mask, a kosher one. And for the reason for that, why we got these kosher ones, and first of all, we didn't take them away from hospitals, but we do also certify nursing homes. In those facilities, we went out of our way and spent a lot of money to make sure that all our mashgichim and people who, from our side at least, who are going into any healthcare facility are properly outfitted. So we take extra precautions. And once I have the N95, I wear it everywhere that I'm going into that needs a mask. But I do use another mask on top of it. We say I double cover, not because I'm a Hasidish woman, but the reason is because I try to keep the N95 clean. The way I keep it clean is I wear a double covering over it.
Is your mask a chazonishir or it's not? Is it?
You can't see that I'm laughing, but I'm laughing. That's the problem behind this thing. All right. Wear gloves, and we also, by the way, there's a big tumult about gloves, and the CDC does not recommend gloves 100% because if you don't pay attention to your gloves will become just as contaminated as your hands, and you end up spreading whatever germs that way too. But we had 2 special training sessions for all our mashgichim in the proper technique for putting on and taking off masks and gloves and face shields and everything like that, so they'd be familiar with it, and so they could be able to protect themselves. Okay. Give me 1 second, and
Okay.
You can finish talking about something else, and I'll be right back with you.
Okay, fine. Thank you. All right, so let's take some more of these questions that came in here, Rabbi Mushell. Okay, ordering salmon from a store online is tricky, and because it would need to have certain requirements. Number one, we only use farm salmon. We don't use wild salmon because there's little worms in the wild salmon sometimes, and we don't.
You want to make sure that it has the skin on.
You want to make that number 2, right? You want to make sure it has a skin so you can see where the scales were, and then you'd have to be concerned about how they cut it in the store. Did they use a non-kosher knife? That problem you can get around by washing it or cutting off a little piece where they cut. But you should make sure that it comes with the skin and that it's farm salmon, according to our policies. Let's see. Someone claimed Rabbi Yosef said the camera is okay for Chalav Yisrael. Is that correct? Well, that's what I think Rabbi Tendler was alluding to before. He didn't want to talk about it really. But there is, yes, there is. Rabbi Yosef has discussed that, and but you'd also need, even if the camera is okay, like how do you monitor afterwards? The camera is okay to be Chalav Yisrael, all right, because you can see that just cows getting milk. But how do you monitor where that milk is going afterwards, like which tank it's going into, and to make sure that it remains Chalav Yisrael? That's a little bit of a technical issue that you need to solve. Again, we don't rely on it, so it's not really applicable. Okay, Rabbi Tendler, you're back.
I am back. Okay, so I'm going to turn my camera around so you can see. You'll follow me exactly where I'm going over here. The front of Accents is actually their brand new wine store, which we've been very involved in advising them as far as kosher wine, the beer issue, especially in Maryland. So that's the first thing that when I walk in, we look through to make sure that nothing here is not kosher. Now, liquor stores have always been considered something that's essential. I think maybe more so now than ever before, and based on the beer sales, which we're involved with in tracking because of Chametz Pesach issues, it certainly seems to be that beer is actually, and alcoholic beverages are selling at a higher rate these few months than anything else. Okay, so we're going to walk into the kitchen over here. First is hand sanitizer, which every kitchen has to have. Give me 1 second. I'll put the camera down so I could rub it on my hands as we're walking in. As you can see, everybody here has to wear masks and gloves. Hola! ¿Cómo estás? Yeah, it helps to know a little bit of Spanish as you're walking into the kitchen. The mashgiach, by the way, is standing behind me. Ruvain, I'll show you his face in this. Oh, here he is. He was behind me. Shalom Aleichem, Ruvain. Shkoyach for your Mesiras Nefesh. So the first thing I would do is, I'm going to walk through the line over here. I check all the fridges and all the canned goods and make sure everything is kosher over there, besides the mashgiach checking it in. All the fires have to be lit. We have the pilot lights right there, which we verify. Where is it? Where's it? Pilot lights, making sure they're all on. I don't know if you can see it. And walk back over here to the storage areas, the fridges, the freezers, walking through to make sure that everything here is 100% kosher. Checking the meat that are in the freezer, which is, again, this is the standard restaurant inspection that goes on daily in the day life and times of all Star K supervisors, every kashrus supervisor in every agency. Yeah.
How long does a visit take you in this kind of place?
So that's a good question to ask, but sometimes you might not want to know the answer. No, but the answer is that when you're familiar with a facility, then you can go through much quicker than otherwise. So I can walk through and you know what's supposed to be where, and generally I'm not going to say we never find things, but Baruch Hashem, we never find things that are a real gross problem. It's just a matter of they have the fish plates too close to the meat area, small little things like that that will point out, because these are the things that will catch your eye when you know what you're looking for. So that just takes a little bit of experience. It's not something that is a tremendous, don't necessarily need a PhD for. It's just a matter of just knowing what it is that you're supposed to be looking for. So again, there's nothing new or additional that we do right now because of COVID-19. It's just a matter of carrying on business as usual under these circumstances, wearing all the extra protective gear, and which gets very hot, by the way. It gets very hot under here. I have it situated like this so my glasses don't fog up, and I actually keep anti-fog spray in my car. So I spray my glasses with it, so it keeps my glasses clear, because if you walk into a restaurant and you're trying to check it for kashrus and your glasses fog up, you're not going to be so effective. So that's...
How you were mentioning about the fish and the meat. How is the fish and the meat separated there? Is that something you can show us, or
Yeah, I'll show you. So right here, this is weird. For some reason, the camera's like a little backwards. Tim, it's on my right, but for some reason, it's on your left. But okay. This area right over here, let's see my hand, right here, this is the fish area. Right here, this is where they prepare all the fish. They have a separate fish stove right over here. And they have yellow knives that's designated for fish. And all the fish is stuff kept over here. Everything else in the kitchen is fleischiks. So that's really what it is. Sometimes if you'll have a fish dish that's prepared over here and they want to add something from the other side that is not necessarily meat, so they have a system how they keep it separate. But when I walk in, I'm going to watch for that and make sure that they're actually adhering to the proper system.
And the mashgiach is there full time, right?
Yes, open to close. Open to close.
Right. Okay, Barbara is asking, according to food safety guidelines, food can't be stored on the floor as we saw in the fridge. So we have to address that, Rabbi Tendler. Is that an issue for us?
If there's gross health department violations, then possibly. But generally speaking, all the restaurants, especially now, are visited very often by the health inspectors. This, over here, specifically Larry, who's the owner, is somebody who is actually very, very health conscious himself. So he's usually very on top of things.
We can assume that that's not a problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Rabbi Tendler. Let's see if there's any last-minute questions over here that we didn't get to, or that if people have more questions. Again, you can call us at 410-484-4110, or email us info@star-k.org. There's a question that over here from Rabbi Shur. In Eretz Yisrael, we lost Rabbi Tendler's picture at least, that cashews have worms. What is done differently here? Okay, so are we worried about worms in cashews? That's Rabbi Tendler's department. Are you there?
Yeah, so the question was cashews and worms. So yes, it could be a problem in certain parts of the world. In America, we have not found it to necessarily be so common. So that's why in America, we don't require cashews to be checked. And when I say in America, I mean the ones that we've found to be sold in stores in America and in North America. But in Eretz Yisrael, certainly they have different issues over there. And from what I understand also is that the guidance of the Rabbanim and Kashrus experts there is that you should check cashews for worms, and therefore when you're in Eretz Yisrael, you should certainly follow their guidance.
What I heard when the Corona issue started coming out, I was in Eretz Yisrael on Purim. And that's when they started, with the closing the borders and everything. And I wasn't sure I was able to get back to the United States, but Baruch Hashem, I got back to Thursday night right after Purim. But I was listening to the news, and that's how you tell if you understand Hebrew or not. And so they were interviewing a supermarket chain distributor, and he said that people started getting worried about the food, and he said, there's no reason to worry about the food in Israel because for defense reasons, they have stock of up to a year of product that sits there that they should never come, be under a siege or something like that. There's tremendous stocks that they keep. And so they replenish that and they give you the old product. And I thought at that time, that could be, if that's true, that could be a reason why Israel has a greater problem. One of the reasons, besides the temperature, has a greater problem of bug infestation, because if they're really storing product for up to a year and then giving it to you, so the bugs have a chance to proliferate.
Right. That is definitely possible. It's hard to know exactly. We've never done our own research in Eretz Yisrael, but they certainly have reliable agencies that have. I don't know the reasons why they feel things are more infested there, but they certainly do. And we're welcome to theorize, but I can't speak to that.
It's just a theory. That's all. Okay. Yeah. Moshe is asking, does the mashgiach have to close the oven every time it's opened if it switches off when it's open? So it is an oven that turns off every time.
Like a convection oven. Yeah, convection ovens. A lot of convection ovens have that issue. And it depends how they're situated. A lot of them are able to depends where you get your convection oven from, they can install an override feature, which negates the need for that. But if they don't, then it's something mashgiach has to certainly be on top of. That it's not necessarily every time it opens and closes it, but the mashgiach has to be on top of the oven doesn't close down. It doesn't cool down, I'm sorry.
The residual heat also is effective for Bishul Yisrael.
Right. So a lot of ovens, especially a convection oven, has been running at 350. Will have, will take some time, at least 5-10 minutes for the heat to cool down below temperatures that would become a problem with Bishul Yisrael. So that is the situation, then is something the mashgiach does have to be on top of.
Avram is asking, is it possible to kasher a plant virtually, theoretically? It's not something that we would do. I don't really see how you could. I mean, if it's a place that you're totally familiar with, possibly we're not doing that.
No.
I mean, I can't see it. I mean, because you have to make sure the temperature gets up and everything is covered and it's all clean. How are you going to check? How are you going to virtually check if a vat is clean or not? I mean, he's going to take his camera and put it in there and you're going to see?
Right. So what we did do in China, for example, not for kashering we would not do in kashering, but we did do in China where some places where we had a local from person who was able to do an inspection for us, but he might not be familiar with the plant because he never went there before. He will go with the mashgiach on the phone on Zoom or something like that, and they'll go together through the plant, as opposed to just what's being. I know
we have the mashgiach who's there doing it, right?
Right, mashgiach there is doing the inspection, but he'll have the regular mashgiach on the phone to guide him, as opposed to I know there's a lot of talk people are hearing about what they call a virtual visit, where you have one of the plant personnel walk around with a phone. That's not something that is really so great.
How is the agency going to know if the utensils are clean or not? Well, on a camera, it's going to look as clear as it does as Rabbi Tendler walking around the facility before. It's you can sort of see it, but you can't really get exactly. So how would that work exactly? We wouldn't allow that. So that's not something that we would do. Okay. All right. So I want to. Rabbi Tendler's coming in and out. Okay. Let me see if there are any other issues that we didn't get to. There is some issue about quinoa, about getting quinoa infestation. We had really a whole webinar about it, right? And Rabbi Tendler has videos on it. Keeping in the freezer will help. It will help if it wasn't infested when you bought it.
Right.
So if you buy, then you check it and you know that it's not infested, and then you put it in the freezer. That's a good idea. That will keep it from getting further infested. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much for joining, and I'm glad that we were able to get in a little peek behind the scenes of the Accents restaurant and see that it's still running, right? The restaurant is open for pickup only. Is that the idea?
Yeah, pickup or curbside pickup and delivery.
It looks pretty busy for just pickup. Looks like a lot of people there.
Yeah, it's also Erev Yontif, so people are ordering stuff. But Baruch Sholom gives parnasa to everybody, and the restaurants when this whole thing started really had no idea how they would survive, and Baruch Hashem, they're all still here, and maybe not making as much as they usually would this time of year, but Baruch Hashem, everyone's okay.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you both sides. Thank you, Rabbi Mushell, Rabbi Tendler, for joining us.
Thank you, Rabbi Gold.
Thank all the listeners for coming. And usually this webinar is the last Wednesday at 12 noon. But again, The reason that we changed it, we found that a lot of people have their kids at home, and their kids are on the computer, and they have a bunch of kids, and only so many computers have ability to watch. So we thought that this would be at the end of the day would be a little more accessible for people to get to their computers. Yehuda says he likes the new time. Noon is lunchtime. Well, you can watch while you're eating your lunch. Beryl wants to know, are there bugs inside strawberries?
No. It's only outside strawberries.
Not on the outside. We're talking about the outside where you
right. It's not impossible to find maggots sometimes inside the strawberries, but it's not common at all. It's well below what they would call mir hamotzi levels. So it's not something we have to be concerned about.
Inside the strawberries, there will be no way to eat them.
Right.
No way to eat the strawberries.
That's right.
Oh, okay. All right.
Frozen strawberries are also a recess special, as they say. In many homes, I could tell you that the smoothie machines start going as soon as recess starts on the Zoom or phone conferences. So we're seeing a spike in frozen strawberry sales because of that.
I want to ask I want to try something now. We're at the end. If there's anybody who wants to ask a question by video, we can put you up on the screen with some class participation. Just chat over here that you're willing to you want to be recognized for a question, and we could put you up. I don't know if we have such brave listeners over here, but it does add something to be more personal if we can see who you are, because everybody has a camera. We know you all have cameras now. Okay, let's see.
I'm surprised no one asked why we don't do this on Zoom.
Why don't we do it on Zoom? Zoom has security issues. Zoom has some technical. I mentioned to Rabbi Tendler. I've been on a lot of webinars. Not everybody uses Zoom. Let me see if I can get Avram Horowitz over here. Let's see if he can be. Let's see his if he has his video on.
And yes, you can keep your San Francisco background on, or what background you put on your Zoom.
Hold on a second. Let's see. It's Avram. Let me see. Avram wanted to come on. Where is he? Oh, there he is. Okay. Hello, how are you? We can't hear you, though.
See, maybe here.
Rabbi Horowitz.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yeah. Are you in Baltimore? Where are you?
No, I live in Atlanta.
Oh, in Atlanta, okay.
Okay, so this is for another hechsher that I work with. I go every few months to some place and I check it, and they have a kosher run. And originally I was supposed to go. It hasn't happened yet. It was supposed to be next week. But then they were very concerned. I said to them, I took the test. They said they're not allowing visitors. It's a big company. So anyway, the other mashgiach who's sort of in charge of me, who sometimes goes, he worked it out to do the virtual thing, and I was really upset about it, and I spoke to Rabbi on him and everything. So I just wanted to understand if there's any in mitzad halacha how it could be done, because
okay. Well, the problem is that we have a rule here. We don't talk about other hechsherim.
I know, so I'm not going to say which hechsher. I'm not going to. I just want to know, because I said by the in Shulchan Aruch in Yoreh De'ah Siman Kuf Nun, it speaks about milking, that even if you sit outside and if the farmer has also a treif, so you can't be soymech if you sit outside. You have to actually see, and then it talks about standing up when you're sitting down, when you're standing up. So I said, right. when there's mamish treifa runs, how can you do it virtually? I said, even if you have the camera the whole time when the kashering, you look before, you look after, but it's not. I didn't understand how. I just was said to this Rav, who's sort of in charge. I said, isn't it a kal v'chomer if you can't even do it when this farmer is you go say he has cows, but because he has also a treif somewhere else, so you can't just be sitting outside. It's not good enough. So for sure, a camera would work.
Right. It's actually we spoke about that. It's actually Kufta as well by Yochel Yisrael talks about that. What's
Right,
Yosef
right.
and
That's what
Nichnas
I
and
mean,
thing. Right.
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 Ah, no.
But it's I would say you should address that question to Rav Machshir. It's a complicated question. I know, Rabbi Horowitz, I think you have a military background, so you're trying to hand us a loaded gun, but we're not willing to take it. So, okay.
No, I just
but what he's bringing up is an issue that
Yes.
we need to be careful. It's not something that is that
I know,
is.
and they said they're going to do it just one time. So I said to this Rob, well, what's the shot? Why one time? If you think you could do it, then why not every time?
Right, but
So he
Goldberg,
said,
I think the best way to address is, we're behind him and told us, remember before Pesach, when everyone was going crazy before Pesach, finding coolest for this and coolest for that, and behind him said, Rabbi Yisai, he said, I lived through World War II. Right. He said that was a much more stressful time. There were endless of food shortages then, and people's lives were truly in danger actively. It's not like that now. And, as much as possible, I'm just cornering behind him, and he said, as much as possible, the Baruch Sholom, if anything, is money from us, to fix our relationship with him, which means to try to do mitzvahs as best as we can, even under the circumstances, and not necessarily look for kulas. So his guidance is obviously has something that has steered, the Star K for sure, and something that we found is a tremendous chizuk,
right. So
during these times.
Let me see if there's any. Thank you. Let me see if there's anyone else that is.
Sorry, it's okay. Good yontif anyway.
Good yontif. Let me see if there's anyone else who would like to ask a question here before we end. You can chat with us real quick, but that it is difficult for us. We don't want to say anything about other Hashem. That's not our policy is not to address anything that has to do with any other. We're just talking about kashrus in general and the Star K. So you can find our other webinars archived at star-k.org, and if we are recording this, we don't have our regular tech people, but we're trying to record this, and this one also should be up on our website soon. And I want to thank everybody for joining, and have a very good yontiv, and stay safe, be healthy, and all the best. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.